Good afternoon and Om Shanti. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can, Om Shanti.
Thank you, Brother Om Shanti. And again, good afternoon. Welcome to our Saturday Insightful Dialogue series. It is my pleasure to introduce today's workshop speaker, Brother Santi. By profession, Santi is a creative producer and organizational strategist. Also, he has been a practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation for over 20 years, and he is most definitely an embodiment of it. As I think many of you know, he is great at going into the greater depths of seemingly straightforward spiritual ideas while still showing us how to make them a part of our day-to-day lives. Thus, I do think he's the perfect person to discuss with us today about God, particularly reconstructing how we relate to him. I don't want to take any more time from what promises to be a very interesting discussion. And so I now turn it over to you, Brother Santi. Om Shanti.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, so I was just engaging that it would be wonderful to start with a moment of silence so that we can come into the moment, into the present moment in that beautiful state of pure consciousness, that state of soul consciousness of I am a spiritual being and I am present in this moment. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. So today's talk is about redefining God. You know, many of us have been born and go through life, and through that process, we pick up a lot of information, a lot of understanding about what God might be. But I think this particular time in the history of, or in terms of humanity where it stands, and also the cycle of consciousness where it stands, it's important for us to become intimate with that idea God, that reality God, and for us to define it in such a way where we can create a very intimate relationship where God becomes a resource, a friend, and takes on many different roles, where it helps us unravel our mind, unravel our feelings, unravel our doing. And by doing so, we become intimate companions. And the goal for this is that we are going to look at how we are connected, how we have defined, and how we actually really live with this idea, this reality called God. So many of us have been exposed through different ideas, and around the world there are many ideas or concepts, mythologies, scriptures, stories, books, ideas of what God might be. And a lot of times he takes on animal form, he takes on elemental form. And here, you know, so based on where we come from, based on our culture, based on our language, based on everything that we are exposed to, we have this mythology going on. And so part of that cosmology is understanding, you know, how did it all begin? How does this work? How do I relate to God? What's the relationship there? And so we're going to explore that a little bit, because there's a lot of misconceptions or a lot of different understandings. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of understanding about what he might be. And what we are going to try to do is come to some clarity on a personal level that will help us sort of create this space of bonding, a very intimate bonding. And that bonding is going to be out of love. Why out of love? Because without that bonding of love, we cannot create trust and have faith as well. So out of love, we're going to plant the seed today, full of love, in order to engage a relationship, a bond with this source of life, the life giver. First of all, let's explore a little bit. I want to understand, what is your experience with God? So what was the story about God you grew up with? Anyone? What's your story? What did society, what did your parents tell you God is? Anyone? God is. How did you start that voyage into creating a relationship with God?
In my case, my parents would take me to temples and show me Bible.
Can you repeat that, sister? Hello?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Not
Can you hear me?
now. I can. Yes.
Okay. In my case, my parents usually used to take me to temples and look at the idol, and they would say he is God or she is goddess. That's all I knew about gods.
Yeah. So basically, you were thinking that God is this figure, right?
Yeah.
As a child. So a lot of times, yes, a lot of times what happens is that we get so connected to these symbols that we then make them the actual object of our devotion. And that becomes problematic, because how is it that I can create a relationship with a symbol that doesn't move with me, right?
Yes.
So it's very inanimate. So it's very amazing how we as human beings in this human experience actually create relationships with these objects made of stone. But it happens often. And not only objects made of stone, objects in terms of what we see in nature. So sometimes God takes on the form of the elements. God is the sun. God is thunder. God is fire. So the way we create, the way we relate has a lot to do with the way we actually make use of that idea and how then it helps us through life. So we're going to keep that idea. How is my idea of God helping me in this moment? How does it support me? Right? Anyone else? What's the story you grew up with in terms of what God is?
Om Santi, brother. This is Ranjit.
Om Shanti.
So, like God, like as sister mentioned, like we go to temple, and we see the idol of Krishna, Rama, and different goddess Durga, and we understand the other gods. And while grew up, we understand God is one. The different power, different forms in terms of powers, in terms of divine's values. These are different forms of one God. But ultimately, it comes like that. Even though it's one God, but still the way we are looking, it's kind of body to body. So either I don't know myself, I don't know God. So at one point, it questions arises, who is God? Okay, so yes, so it's more like you said, it's stone or elements. So all is based on multiple different pointers of the God. But yes, God is one, but different forms of God. So
Yeah.
kind of some level of confusions, but not that clarity, but still we think, oh, God is there. So as long as I am thinking as myself as a body, it's very easy to understand, okay, he's a God, he looks like this, or this happened in the past when God came to the earth and did all these things.
Yeah.
Those stories. So we connected with those stories, and so that's how we created trust. Oh yes, God came as a Krishna, God came as Rama, and so it's same thing between, it's Ram's God, Krishna is God. So that's how we grew up. Even the Durga. So how all the different powers combine together and make a superpower.
Yeah.
That's became all 8 powers in one God. That's became Durga. So that's how we grew up. So knowing about the God.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of times what we do is we have broken up what we perceive to be God into a million pieces. And so every attribute becomes a different form, as you said. And so all of a sudden, God is broken up into a million pieces. So how can we relate to a broken thing? Something that has been scattered throughout the cosmos, right? So sometimes because of the mythology, because of the story that we created about God and the way we come to relate with him, it also creates this space of confusion. What aspect of God do I call upon, right? What aspect of God and what happens when I do not connect to other aspects of God? Does that mean that he's absent, right? So really understanding and creating your own personal relationship with the meaning of what means to you is very important, because from that, then you actually create a certain relationship that becomes very supportive. So sometimes our stories about God do not support a relationship that becomes nurturing, right? It cannot nurture us because God seems to be broken into a million pieces. So how can we perceive God as a whole? Anyone else? What also happens in terms of my own personal story, it's like my mother grew up with the traditional Catholicism, but now there's also this idea that God is the Son. So that happens a lot of times. The confusion that God transmutes from himself into another entity, into the Son itself. The Son of God now becomes God himself. So all these stories, they can have a lot of confusion in them in terms of our ability to actually relate in an intimate way. So we're gonna work through this so we can come to a understanding, a way of anchoring, a way of really just centering our mind so that we can then have that as a point to focus on and to also call upon when we require resources. So what is your personal experience of God? We've already gone through that a little bit, but you personally, that's the story. We just went through some stories, right? Mythology about what God is, but what's your personal experience, practically speaking? How have you experienced God? Anyone? Have you experienced him when you look out into the sunrise? Have you experienced him? How do you experience him? What's been your personal experience with God? Anyone?
Are you talking currently or as a child?
Currently.
Oh, currently. Well, I was brought up in many religions, and Catholic was one of them.
Mhm.
Dunking in water with the neighbors, with the Baptists and all this stuff. So as a child, all you would hear is fear and damnation. So I was always on a spiritual path, looking for something that wasn't identified as a human being, a spirit, or whatever. I couldn't relate to that as a child.
Mhm.
So, well, we've talked at the center before about, I'm on a different spiritual path, and I know from a past life of a philosophy that began in India 3,000 years ago. And because it's based on cause and effect, it's not identifying with a superhuman being, superpower. I could not give my power away. So it just was uncomfortable, because the only thing I would hear in church was, like hell and damnation, and you say 3 Hail Marys or something, and you're freed from whatever. And I thought that is a bunch of unrelated stuff to me. So that's why I began with my spiritual practice. I mean, I'll talk about it. I've talked to you about it, about the chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which means the mystic law of cause and effect. It's talking about cause and effect, a universal energy. And I relate to that as the same thing as a God or unrelated human existence, that I just say it's the same as an energy in the universe, because this has given me incredible foundation for the last 53 years. I've tried many, many spiritual practices, and I love Brahma Kumaris because I love their teachings and their classes and the humanity, and I love my experience that I have with my spiritual practice of doing this, reciting this every day. So I just can't relate to people praying to exterior to change their life, because exterior cannot change your life. And Brahma Kumaris really emphasizes the same thing, that you are responsible, especially in their quotes that they have every single day. So thank you for sharing, letting me share. I don't know if I
of course.
said too much or whatever, but I
No.
miss you, Santi, at the center.
Yes. Well, I totally relate to that, because a lot of times what happens in this story mythology that we create about God is that one of reliance, one where we have to be beggars, right? So so we create a relationship where we are disempowering ourselves, and something or someone has to come and save us. And a lot of times the stories that we've created and that society has created is about that. It's about some other source, some other aspect of this God source then is necessary for us to be saved and be liberated, when the work itself has to be done by us. So the relationship that we have with God is very important, because then is God a teacher, a guide, right? Does he guide us? Does he give us knowledge? And then we do the work. So that's something we're going to explore. What role does God play in my personal life? And how does that relationship empower me, nurture me, support me? Okay. So anyone else would like to share their personal experience?
Yeah, this is Anil. I think from the very childhood, we were basically brought up in a culture where it was always an external power that provided for it, and the prayers were a means to seek the blessings and reap the rewards. As we grew, or at least I grew older, it gave a consolation feeling that some external force is guiding you and providing you if you believe in him.
Mm.
And that external force, slowly by time, becomes an internal force. And then the aspect which was referred as begging becomes irrelevant, and it becomes a companion
Mm.
whom you can confide internally and treat him based on the occasion, like mother, father, friend, giver, and it effectively becomes a force in you in the time of adversity.
Mm.
And I think that is what I now feel about the God.
Mm.
Okay. Earlier, it started out effectively, as somebody pointed out, that like you might call a stone, you might call an image, but these images sort of creates and provides a feeling. Now, for example, when I attend the Brahmakumari meditation, the picture of that lamp rotating sort of reminds me all the time the power of the God and the lights from that entering into me. And that's what basically is appealing me towards Brahma Kumari. No, not necessarily. No, and somebody else was pointing out that the God, like, so now what happens is in Brahma Kumari, quite often you folks refer to Baba, okay, now, and in your Murli, basically everything is referred to Baba. To me, it is more like a not human being, but I am calling it basically God who providing the knowledge.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah, just for clarification of this, Baba, when we say Baba without, sometimes we say Baba just for short, but it really means Shiv Baba, which means God. So it's not referring to Brahma Baba, the founder of the university, but it's actually referring to God. So it's Shiv Baba. Sometimes we just, out of endearment, we just keep it short, because if you've been practicing for a long time, you know the difference between the two. So normally when we're speaking about the Murli and speaking of the knowledge, the one who is giving the knowledge is Shiv Baba, which is basically God. So just to clarify that.
Okay, because quite often when you read, the Murli, it appears that you are talking about Brahma Baba, but really speaking, if I cannot associate myself with a human being in the form of a God, particularly with the recent events, in the sense like, yeah, Krishna appeared as a human being, and I have no issue at all, or I basically accept Ram and Krishna as God. However, if all the other saints like who have appeared, I have a very difficult time taking them as God, like many other people take Sai Baba or even Brahm Baba as God, God incarnate. I consider them to be the gurus, spiritual force. We can learn from them, but I have a very difficult time in elevating them to that status, and many followers do set for their own, you might call, path they are following. Over.
Mhm. Yeah, so just again, just to clarify, the Raja Yoga stance in terms of that is that Brahma Baba is simply the founder and also the instrument. As you mentioned, he's just the instrument. He is the individual who received the information, and he received it from God, right? And God then uses him as an instrument, but he's not God. He's just being utilized by God to deliver the knowledge. So God is delivering the knowledge through this individual, but that individual is not God. So you're absolutely correct. So
Yeah.
it's just part of the foundation of the experience
Yeah.
of Raja Yoga.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, really speaking, because they are the provider of the knowledge, are very close to him, but they have their own thing. And for me, God is infallible and so on, and many attributes. Over.
Absolutely. Yeah. In total agreement. We're in
Yeah.
total agreement with all of that.
Yeah. And just to add on that, even Brahma Baba is not even a guru. So when we call all the gurus that we see today, we follow different gurus, but here even Brahma Baba is also not a guru.
Yes.
Yes, he just individuals, like Santi brothers mentioned. So he just used as an instrument. And Baba, when we say the God, he clearly said in many murlis that he's an individuals, and God never takes birth. So
Yeah.
any individuals who is living being cannot be God.
Yeah.
Not even Brahma Baba is a God. So he's just a instrument.
Yeah, we're going to touch a little bit on that as well as we move through this. That there is no human being who can actually take on that title. And we'll share that a little bit in terms of what is the difference between you and I and God. And we'll go into that a little bit in a bit. So thank you for your sharing. Anyone else? Let's go to the next one. What are the qualities you attribute to God? So we know that, we have a story about God. We have a personal relationship with God, whatever that might be. And then what are the qualities that you attribute to God? What does God do? How does he act? What does he create? How does he create? Do we know that? Do we understand how God functions? What's God's role or function? As you understood it as a child, growing up, what was your experience with God in terms of his function? How does God function in your life? Anyone?
So, in growing up and all through now, if nothing else, what I was always told, and then what I had come to truly believe was, if you just have faith in him, to always just keep on to that faith, and he will take care of everything, or at least he's watching over you, kind of thing. So I would say maybe now, in terms of how to describe the quality in like a simple word, perhaps trustworthy or even reliable. Like it's like just this sense. I mean, if nothing else, even if there was confusion in my childhood, I think I always just knew or felt that I could have faith in him and believe in him, and things would somehow have a way of working out. So I guess trustworthy or even reliable, yeah, would be some qualities perhaps.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Ranjit. So, yeah, while growing up, through childhood, it was like anything that you need, kind of, I'm saying using the word need. For those things, you have to worship, remember the God, do the worship, puja, and through the some followings, rules, and then you're going to get that with the trust and devotions. So if you're looking for the gyan, knowledge, the
Yeah.
goddess Saraswati's, you have to worship and the pujas. If you're looking for the powers, it's different gods. So through that, you're looking according to that. So once you are done with this kind of with the knowledge in terms of the this finite, not infinite, like studying, college, kind of, right? So people thinks even our understanding was also the same thing. So once you're growing up, doing study, you are worshiping particular God in terms, because you are kind of looking forward towards that. Once
Yeah.
you are adult, or you turns to Lakshmi, because you need no money, is your knowledge is over, kind of. So that's how we grew up, and we're seeing the qualities or attributes to the God. That's how over the time we started thinking, what's now, okay?
Yeah.
So that's how we grew up.
Yeah. A lot of times what happens is that we create this sense that, God treats us well and gives us what we want or need when we behave, right? So this aspect of behavior, and almost like, if you're a good student, you're going to get a little star. So there's this relationship with God that he gives us rewards when we behave. What happens when we don't behave? What's God's qualities then?
So in actual, God's is unconditional. So okay, so it's unconditional. So once we connect to the God, a truth that is unconditional.
Yeah.
So that all the condition that we are having is all on physical levels or on finite levels.
Yeah.
Once we connect to the God, that's in Hindi we call it behad. So once you connect, it's unconditional. So that's how every moment is to transform. Once we transform, we connect to the truth. Once we connect to the truth, it's unconditional.
Yeah. And before, what was the idea in terms, did anybody have an idea of God as the one who brings attribution, meaning, he punishes. So God punishes us when we misbehave, when we don't do things correctly, right? So sometimes these stories, ideas talk about a God that actually punishes us.
Right.
So even going beyond that, is that something that God really does? Is that the reality of God's space? Anyone? Was that a God you knew, the one who punishes you, the one who you feared?
I don't think so, brother. This is Durga. God never punishes us, but our own karmas. If we do bad karma, then that karma comes as a punishment to us and teaches us a lesson. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm speaking towards the different mythologies, the different stories that are in the world in terms of how God is defined. God is defined both as the one who gives life and also who takes life. So does God really take life? And we're going to explore that. What's the role of God? Why is he here? Why does he exist, right? We're going to explore different aspects of what that means, or how that may sort of work in space. So are we created? So one of before where we engaged here, as you look at all these images, what do you see they have in common? Can you see a common theme here in terms of how we envision God? Anyone?
Giving.
Huh?
With some imagery reflected in it. like it's our interpretation, our view on based on our upbringing, the symbology,
Yeah.
and the, you might call it visual, which we have been brought up.
Yeah.
And we
what
take
does-
ownership of that visual so that we basically associate it with only that visual which we have been brought up.
Yeah. What about the form? Is the form something outside of just the human form, or is it just a physical body? So all of these forms basically are embodying, most of them are embodying a human form. So the question becomes, are we created in God's image, or is God created in our image? What do you think is the story in terms of how we as a society have created imagery about God? So are we created in God's image, or is God created in our image? Some
We-
stories. Go ahead.
We have created God in our own image.
That's right.
Okay, and what happens is, again, my perspective is that it is basically how we have been brought up. If I was brought up, say, in a different culture, say Christian culture, then my imagery would have been a cross. But I have been brought up in a, say, Hindu culture, so my imagery is that. And as we grow older, as we really affirm our faith in the true God, then we feel a universality associated with it. And that is the ultimate realization of what God is.
That's right. Yeah. And I like your point about universality. That's a universal form, right? Because what we see in a lot of the images is a form that is specific to a culture, specific to a specific location, specific to a certain mythology. And so it doesn't include everything. So sometimes even the images of God are create division, create separation, create reasons to struggle and to challenge each other. So how can we come to an understanding of God's image, of its real sense of universal experience? And we are going to see if we can come into that sensation, that experience. How can God be seen in such a way where it's beyond our physical form? Because as you mentioned, we have created God in our image, and that's why God always has what seems to be a physical body, right? Or related to a element or something within the physical world. And sometimes, and a lot of times, what we forget that there's different dimensions of that reality. So taking it away from just what is physical and then taking it into the spiritual. And that's what we're going to try to engage here. We're going to take what we know of God and we're going to take it into a different dimension, one of spiritual engagement, one where we can possibly relate to him on a universal level where every single human being can relate to him in such a way that makes sense. Does anybody have a question or would like to add to what has already been shared? So we come to this image here is an image that for it's really the cycle of time, but it's also a cycle for forgetting and remembering. And what is it that we're forgetting? We're forgetting that God actually is there, here, present. And then there's a point in time where we begin to remember. And this cycle is also the state of consciousness on the individual level, but also the collective. And what sometimes we don't realize is that what I think about God and how I'm relating to God actually is affecting the entire world, right? My consciousness and my relationship with God is affecting the universe. And so what we are being called to in this particular time, and I'll go over this image a little bit, is we're being called to re-experience God, to remember him for who and what he is, and also the role that he's playing. So we're going to tap into that. So this is a cycle of forgetting and remembering. So if you look at the yellow, where the tree is full bloom, that is referred to as the golden age. Then the tree almost seems as full, but it doesn't feel as full, and that's the silver age. And then you hit the red part, which is copper, and then the iron age. And in that white little sphere is the confluence age. And right now, we seem to be in the iron age. As you look out into the world, the kind of conflict, the kind of confusion, disruption that is occurring on a global level comes because we as a human race have created a consciousness that is creating this conflict, right? So it's not coming from the cosmos, from somewhere else. Is that we collectively have created the energy, the consciousness that brings us into this particular time. So the way it works is that half of the cycle, the golden age and silver age, because we are in such a pure form, our consciousness is pure and we experience peace and happiness, right? And during this time, God does not exist in our consciousness because God is not required, because he has taught us we're in perfected form, we're in purest form. But then on the second half of the cycle, starting from the copper, the red part, we then begin to say, call out to God, because we begin to forget. And what is it that we're forgetting? We're forgetting who and what we are. And so we begin to call out to God. Conflicts begin to arise. Differentiation in terms of nationalities, borders begin to be created between this country and that country. And we begin to see ourselves as you and them. We begin to differentiate ourselves from this race to that race, that color skin. And so as we progress through time, we enter this iron age where we begin to even, we're in a state of affairs right now where we as a group of human beings are not paying close attention to the way we are even keeping the air that we breathe that gives us life in these physical bodies, clean air to breathe. We're not paying attention to the chemicals we're putting in the earth, and we are polluting the earth. And so how is it that we're going to eat? And then we are also destroying the sea life in the oceans. Our water supplies are becoming contaminated, right? So all this aspects is actually part of the nature of this cycle of time. It's actually the state of consciousness is affecting the earth itself. And so during this time of confusion, during this time of destruction that we are creating upon ourselves, it's almost so it's not coming from anywhere else except from our own way of thinking, our way of feeling, and our way of doing things. And during this time, we have an opportunity. What happens is that God says, I am listening to you, and I am going to come and give you direction. So during this confluence age, which is happening simultaneous to the Iron Age, God says, I am here to instruct you, to give you more information so you can remember, right? So stop forgetting and remember. I'm going to give you the instruction, the knowledge, so that you can remember who you are and your internal treasures, but also, most importantly, you can remember the proper relationship to me. So this again, the cycle of forgetting and remembering causes us to re-experience God, right? Before, because we are in such perfected form, we didn't need God in order to remind us, because we are in that deity form, that pure form. And then we forget. And as we travel through time, and as we continue to do those things in that forgetful state of not understanding ourselves as spiritual beings and only identifying with our physical body and the physical world, we begin to create stories even about God that break up God into a million pieces, right? Into the different attributes of God, different powers, and we begin to create imagery about God being, a human form with an eagle's head. So we begin to create mythologies that confuse us even more. So God says, I'm here now, and I'm going to give you instruction so that you can actually clean up your process of thinking, so that your feelings can be elevated and your actions can then be purified. Does anybody have a question about this image? Or would you like to add any ideas or concepts? So during this time, basically what's happening is God is extending his hand and he's saying, come, follow me. I'm going to liberate you from sorrow. I'm going to show you how you can purify yourself. Right? He doesn't say, here, follow me. I'm going to, just by following me, you will be purified. No, he says, here, follow me. I'm going to give you knowledge so that you can do the work necessary for you to purify yourself. And how do we do that? So this invitation comes at a particular time where we are self-destructing. And it comes not to be this omnipotent, omnipotent sort of source, but he comes as the giver of knowledge so that we can then purify the knowledge of ourselves as spiritual beings beyond the physical body and also integrated in this physical form, right? So spiritual entity cannot exist without the physical, and the physical cannot have life without the spiritual. So he teaches us how that system actually works. And then he also teaches us, who am I? God, right? So God teaches us who he is, his form, and his history. And then the history of how we go from being conscious, pure, to unconscious forgetfulness. So here he's holding our hands in this particular time in the history of humanity, in the history of the planet, in this cycle of consciousness from heightened to at lowest form. And he says, this is my form. And these are my qualities, right? So he's informing us that the form that we have been creating with, in terms of the mythology, in terms of the story that we've been telling about God, is only creating more confusion and more disruption. Because it's only when we recognize him for his real form that we can actually connect with him. So he educates us and he says, I am a soul. And what is a soul? A soul is a light energy, a spiritual energy, a life giver, a creator. And I have a process that I function. So I, the soul, have a conscious mind that creates thoughts, emotions, desires. An intellect, right, and a subconscious mind. And I also have qualities. So my qualities are purity, love, power, bliss, and peace. And from those specific powers or treasures, all other virtues arise. So it gives us very specific information about what is the soul. So the soul then becomes concrete. We can understand it, we can understand its process. And because we understand it, then we can actually shift ourselves, right? Because Baba then says, I created you in my image, right? So he turns it around. You're not creating me, I created you in my image. And what image is that? So if I am a soul, then you are a soul. And this is what a soul looks like. And this is how we as souls function. So God, by sharing his form, he also reminds us that we are also souls and we hold the same powers and treasures. Are there any comments or questions?
So here it's expression and subconscious mind. Are these two related?
The expressions,
And subconscious mind.
they are related because the expressions basically, so the soul is operating, what is it the soul operate? The soul operates the body, right? It gives life to
Yes.
the body.
Yes.
So the expressions is when the soul has a thought or something it wants to do in the physical world, it gives command to the physical body to move, to see, to hear, to speak, to move. And those actions that the body does are then create expressions, right? And from that, the observation of such expressions when the act is finished, then go up to the subconscious.
And it stops there. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so there's a specific system to it. And there's also specific qualities that are engaged. And that's also one of the things that he teaches us is that there's a common, every single being, every single soul has the same powers, maybe at different levels, but we all share the same anatomy, physiology when we speak of I, the spiritual being, right?
Yes.
So we're all in this universal space of having common ground. So he brings a way of us actually becoming a unified family beyond the distractions of nationality, beyond the distractions of gender, beyond the distractions that are attributed to the physical world. He invites us to enter the spiritual realm where we can then experience our true form, understand the process in which we function, and also become very close and accustomed to the qualities and the powers that we have in order to create. So God says, I, the creator, have created you in my image so that you too are a creator, right? You too are a creator. So I am creating thoughts. I am creating stories. I am creating stories when I see. I am creating stories when I listen. I am creating stories when I speak. So I am naturally a creator, just like the Father. So this is very important for us to understand, because if we understand that we are the creator, that there's no other anything outside of us that is creating our life, then we can take responsibility for it. Baba teaches us that we are responsible for every thought, every feeling, every action. And that's very powerful, because once we understand that, we also understand that at any point, we can create shifts, we can transform, we can change. from something difficult to something easy and light, full of might.
Okay, so sorry, another question here. So this expressions that is stored in subconscious mind, this is what we call sanskar, right? So that's
Well, actually, the ones that we call sanskars are the observations. So the expressions is the command, the how the soul actually gives the command for the body to move. So it says, body, move your hand to the right, left, do this.
Mhm.
It says, take this action. So once that is done, then it still is creating an understanding of what just happened, and that's the observation, right? So when an action is taken place, I create a story. I relate to it in such a way that I create the imprint that then gets stored in the subconscious mind.
so when we're calling sanskars, that come out from the subconscious mind, right? So something,
That's
suppose, yeah, something somebody suppose asked me to do, and I immediately said no. Kind of that's immediate reactions. That is because of the past expressions through observations stored in subconscious mind. It's uh, so deep that it's come out.
Well, it could be a number of different things. So the intellect would take care of that. So if somebody says do this, and the intellect, based on what you have told it, you are, so your belief systems about yourself, like who am I, what are my values, what are my virtues, right? So I am, and then what are my virtues, and based on that alone, the intellect would discern what to do. Sometimes, if the event is similar to a different event from your past, then it would trigger memories, the sanskars in your subconscious mind to activate. And then those will influence the way your intellect will judge something or
that
discern something.
that will bypass intellect, right? Because it's so deep, so it does not go through the intellect. This is what I have understanding. So that's how once intellect comes, there's a kind of missing knowledge or incomplete knowledge. That intellect is not that divine to make a good judgment. That's one point. But even so, even though we have, but still we don't do that, because the impression is so strong, and it just bypass intellect. Later on we realize, oh my god, so
Yeah.
I knew that, but why I did not think about that? So it means
Yeah.
the intellect was bypassed.
Yeah. So what happens is that as you go deeper into the practice, the intellect becomes stronger. And the intellect will then be able to recognize whether something is influencing something from the past is influencing it or not. So as I sit in meditation for longer periods of time, what happens is your intellect becomes very, very capable of discerning where information is coming. If it's just the belief systems that you have or the old impressions, the old sanskars that are influencing, and then it will discern. But at all times, your intellect is at work. It may take longer for it to work because sometimes our mind is so cluttered with the past. We constantly are thinking about past things, and that it clutters the intellect's ability to act clearly and with high speed, right? So it takes a long time for it to process and decide. So that's where the confusions come from, because I'm not clear as to who I am. But if I always anchor myself in purity, love, power, bliss, and I always know that I have to that I return to that, and so there always it creates a form of stability. So anything that doesn't fall, anything that doesn't relate, anything that doesn't align with these virtues, what happens is that it is discarded. It doesn't play part of my decision making because I'm going to be anchored coming just out of those qualities.
Okay, brother.
That's what Shiv Baba basically is is referring to is that there is a way of creating decisions that is stable,
Mhm.
that gives you stability and gives you the capacity to process life and its moments in such a way where you can maintain your peace of mind and also your happiness.
Uh, Thank you, brother. So just to correlate with our Brahma Kumaran knowledge, so the Sibaba comes and he gives her the knowledge. What the only thing that gives is knowledge, and that is intellect. So once we have knowledge, if we churn that knowledge, do more meditations like that, that's close to purity, love, power, happiness, bliss. So that if we keep doing in a practice on daily basis, every moment, more churning of that knowledge, this will purify our subconscious mind, and it will build on top of that the good, the virtues and the powers. So
That's
if
right.
so if we are keep doing that practice, so that's how it's purified our subconscious mind. It overrides, not overrides, but it's right on top of that. That so our expressions going forwards and observation is going to be purer, slowly and slowly, and that's how the transformation happens. So after sometimes when the same incidents come, we are so conscious because of the knowledge and churning that we stop and discern on the basis of the new knowledge base that came through the churning of Baba's knowledge.
That's
So
right.
that's how the transformation happens. This is
So yeah, all your process is going to be based on purity, love, power, bliss, and peace. So that's going to become your nature again. So that's what part of what we forgot. We forgot that our nature is purity, love, power, bliss, and peace. And because that is so, that's what happens is that we get influenced by these memories, these sanskars. And also one of the other things that happens as you go deeper and deeper into your practice and you're churning knowledge is that when the knowledge, a point of knowledge hits, you also, and an old sanskar that needs to be fixed, that needs to be rewritten in terms of your interpretation and relationship to it, it comes into your consciousness, and then you have the opportunity to look for the benefit in that event and rewrite your relationship with it. And that's how the sanskars are healed. So there now you're, instead of basing it on old ways of being, you are rewriting that event in the way you're storing it inside of yourself based on what benefit, what gift is in this trouble, what gift came from this obstacle. And when you do that, you have rewritten it in such a way where instead of taking you into a space of weakness, it now empowers you. Does that make sense?
yes, brother. So I just want to add one more comment. So
Okay.
the previous slide that you had about the cycle of forgotten and remembrance, right?
Yeah,
So this is what the confluence is, and this is what they're practicing to remember and purify ourselves.
that's correct.
That's how the transformation is going to happen, and the golden is going to come back as per the cycle. So this is the process. So this is all about the knowledge and the meditations.
It's all about I remembering who I am and also me practically putting it into action. So that's very important. It's not just about the knowledge, it's about the knowledge being put into action practically in every moment so that I am transforming not only my own vibration, but also the vibration of the external world. Because it's only when collectively we have accumulated enough power that that transition can occur. Okay, so I am an important element in the transformation of the collective consciousness. So by me playing my role correctly and me really putting effort into that transformation, what happens, I understand that my role is to then add to the vibration that will then create the transformation for the new age to come.
Thank you, brother.
So how are we different from God? Now he taught us how it is that we are all the same, right? All souls are the same. We all have the same qualities, maybe at different levels of power, but we all have common form. But what is the difference between God and you? Anyone? What's the difference between God and you?
God is ever pure with all the virtues. He never come to the birth, and we are getting forgotten about our own quality. So that's make a difference.
Yeah.
That's how our thought, our feelings, our actions is changing every day, starting from the golden age. So now that's how God's come back and give us the knowledge to bring it back to that level. So that is the difference.
Yeah. So and so one of the main differences is that God doesn't forget, but we forget. Why do we forget? Why do we forget? What happens to us?
Because we are playing a role in physical world, and we're creating a relations outside. The God is not creating relation outside because He's ever pure and ever soul, right?
Yeah.
Once we come to this stage, we are playing role of dad, mother, son, teacher, students, this country, that country. So while doing all this play, slowly we start forgetting about our own self, because we are engaged with too many things, and we create a lot of karmas.
Yeah.
So that's how we are keep forgetting about our own selves. At one stage, it becomes awareness that we completely forgot about ourselves. We just know about our ego, our false identity. Sometimes I'm just a body. Sometimes I'm just a collector. I'm just a prime minister. So I'm just a this particular job. So we are completely forgotten about our own self. So that's how we are keep getting down.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are many differences. There the difference of I take a body, I take roles, I forget, right? I forget all aspects of myself. I forget how to communicate with the source, right? I forget many things. And I also take on a physical body, which creates desires and creates a separation from me and other souls. So I forget that another soul lies in that other physical body. And we begin to judge, to blame. So now Baba is saying, come back to your true form, to that form that you know is shared by all other souls. And the experience of going into a physical body is also shared by all other souls. And now see yourself as a spiritual family. Change the dimension in which you are working out of. Change from a physical dimension to a spiritual dimension. Change from a physical feeling, thinking, and being to a spiritual thinking, feeling, and being. And that's very important for us to understand. He comes here to change the way we are functioning. From what dimension do we function? From what qualities do we function, right? Values versus virtues. Spiritual form is unlimited, never knows death. so is eternal. It moves at the speed of light. That's why we can go from one dimension to another, from one world to another, and that's another discussion. But we move differently when we are in a spiritual form. The languaging is different. It's vibration. So I know that when I create a thought, I know that that thought will reach the other person that I'm thinking about in a second, less than a second, the speed of light. So I know that I must be responsible with the way I'm thinking so that the right vibration will reach, the right vibration will be created. I'm going to play a brief meditation in terms of just really going inward and having a feeling, a sensation of what God sort of is bringing into our consciousness by introducing himself again and by giving us the knowledge about ourselves and also our relationship and the importance of how we need to do the work and transform in order to bring about a better world. So just if somebody can just tell me if you can hear this, I'll play. Can you hear it?
Yes, but it's very low sound.
It's low?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
I relax my body
Yeah,
and
it's good.
settle into physical stillness.
Is that better?
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
I notice that my breathing is slow and steady. I feel good that I have made this time for my meditation. I am creating a state of inner peace. I notice that my thinking has slowed down and come more sharply into my focus. I'm more aware of the wanderings of my mind. I keep refocusing my mind on my meditation. In this way, I prepare to meet with God. In a world that has moved its attention away from spirituality, my experience of God has faded. My experience of God has been colored by questions, doubts, confusions, fear, indifference. I want to strengthen my connection with you, renew my relationship with you, so that I can experience your love and draw your power into me. I remind myself that you and I are both souls, not bodies. In this way, we are the same, you and I, beings of energy, subtle, spiritual entities. I play out my part through my body, and you never take a body of your own. You never live a human existence. I want to make myself ready for you, receptive to who you are and what you will share with me. To do that, I'm willing to let go of some old attitudes and beliefs. I know you are pure, so I put aside my cynicism and allow my own pure heart to come out of hiding. I know that you are the truth, so it will be pointless to try concealing my dark secrets from you, and I prepare to meet you with an honest heart. I know you are the most powerful being in the universe, so I forget my self-importance, grateful for your company. I know that you are love itself, nothing but love. So why should I fear you? I know your love is unconditional, and that I don't need to win your love. So I'm not going to make any promises just to try and prove to you how worthy I am. I know that you are complete in yourself and need nothing from me. So I am able to trust you. I know that you are benevolent and unlimited, and that you willingly give me what I need. I know you love every soul, so my habit of feeling not good enough is a waste of my energy. I rest in the surety that I am worthy of your love and attention. I know that you communicate in many ways, and that my perception of you may come to me in pictures or symbols, words, sounds, or subtle feelings. It may feel like it's just my imagination or my desire to be with you, not the real thing. That's okay. According to who I am, I will perceive your presence. I invite you to join me. In the stillness and with open hearts, we are together. You know me better than I know myself. You know my deepest needs. With gratitude, I open myself to your wisdom and guidance. I think of all the things you may give me. Clarity, courage, power, comfort, peace, wisdom. I look, I listen, I sense your presence, and I receive all that you wish to give me.
So, as you come out of this brief meditation, I want you to really go into this question of what is it that your personal experience with the world of the soul. So, this is not just a question about the knowledge. Really, how much time, how much contemplation have you put into what is it to be a soul? How does the soul function? Right? Baba has given us direction as to, how we move. So not with the body, but how we move with the soul. So understanding that we can have different capacities, experimenting with these different capacities, the capacity to move from one world to the next. Also the capacity to take on different forms as the soul, right? The angelic form. So there's many things to discover when we go into the world of the soul, because most of us have been functioning in the physical world. Perhaps we have knowledge of the spiritual, but we haven't yet fully experienced what the soul is all about. And Now I am inviting you to go into that space. And one of the main ways of going into that space of exploration, as Baba has directed us, is meditation. To go into that space of meditation as a method for remembering, not only remembering the surface layers of what is it to be a soul, but to go deeper into the experience of all your different powers, all your different capacities, capabilities, and releasing the old limited beliefs, ideas, stories, mythologies that keep you from fully expressing yourself as that spiritual being with unlimited capacity. So Baba describes going to meditation. Why do we go into meditation? To remember. Why do we want to remember? Because we want to be connected with all of our truth, our capacity to wash away the waste, to remain connected to the source of power. I am the source of power. I am the one who gives, and I am the one who is love. I am love, right? So Baba reminds us that we are those qualities. We are the embodiment of those qualities. So how often are we practicing in that state of meditation to be the embodiment of those powers? I am peace. I am love. I am compassion. I am tranquility. I am creativity. I am happiness. So really using that time to churn, but not just churn the knowledge, to become an embodiment of these ideas. I embody love. I embody peace. I embody purity. Can anyone share your experience in terms of meditation? And if you are having challenges in that state of remembering, in that state of meditation, if you want to share some of these challenges or perhaps some of these successes of why it becomes easy, in order for everyone to gain some experience from your own experience and understanding. Anyone? How is it that you're experiencing your state of meditation?
Okay, I will talk about it. Basically, I find that the early morning meditation uh, in the morning is very, very helpful, particularly with the chanting of Om. So repeating after that one basically calms me down and energizes it, and I sort of don't do it like half an hour of but like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but with the sound and the imagery associated with really helps me. And quite often what happens is I don't get up at the right time and all that thing. So I would like to basically get a Zoom recording so that I can do at a little bit more convenient time. No, I find that meditation with some imagery or with the sound is really, really helpful. Over.
Yeah. One of the things that I will suggest in terms of method, in terms of meditation method, is the Om sound is very powerful and it does purify. But one of the things that is very, that builds your capacity is to churn knowledge, to churn points like I am. So taking on, when you become the force of love, you are taking on a completely different capacity. So it's kind of like becoming the Om. So what I would encourage you to do is expand your meditation to where you are literally inviting yourself to become that power, and see how it actually re-energizes you, how it re-establishes a different sense of stability and a different state of presence.
What
So
should one do in that? Maybe you can provide some guidance on that thing. And
yeah,
is it possible to get that Zoom recording of early prior to the Murli, the Zoom recording of the Om sound with the imagery?
yeah, and we don't necessarily in this practice, we don't necessarily use any chanting per se, but I'm sure that some resources you may be able to find. What I am suggesting is that you, in your own sense, you know how you are asking for commentary of
Mhm.
the sound. So what I'm suggesting here is for you to actually create a speaking to yourself. So I, the soul. So this is an example of speaking to yourself, what we call churning. So I will churn a state. I, the pure being, sit here in this physical body. I am present and conscious. I, the pure being, am love. I am unlimited and whole. So you see, what happens is that you're now guiding the forces within you in the meditation, and you're also giving imagery for yourself to work through. But the reason why I encourage you to actually do this exercise is because then what you will be guiding your mind to follow you. And a lot of times all the mind is needing is a point of focus. And so what you are training your mind to do is to remain in that state of focus on elevated thinking, feeling, and doing. And the doing is I stay still, stable, and able to direct my mind to be the master of my mind, and I am directing it to churn a specific energy. I am directing it for me, all of the molecules that make me to become love. I am love. I am love sitting in this physical body. I am love vibrating in space and in time. That will actually build power for you. So the chanting and the repetition of different aspects is very good, but when you create a new experience on a daily basis, when you sit in meditation, no matter what time it may be, it becomes even more empowering for you. So I would encourage you to try that and experiment a little bit with that, and see what happens. The other thing is, one of the reasons why early time meditation it becomes very important in the practice is because it actually sets the stage for your day. It sets the stage. It actually gives command to your mind to think a certain way, to be responsive, to be flexible, to be stable, to be powerful, right? But under your command. So I, the master of the mind, am creating a relationship in this early morning hour for the mind to follow my direction. So I, the spiritual being, the unlimited, the immortal one, is sitting here instructing all of my sense organs to listen to the way I want them to operate. Eyes, see through the lens of purity. Ears, listen with through the lens of pure love. Mouth, speak through the lens of honesty and purity. Physical body, respond and move with gentleness, tolerance, and respect. You see how you're setting the stage for your day? And that's what churning is about. I hope that um, expands a little bit of your ability to see something new to experiment with.
Thank you. I will try to follow that. I really appreciate your guidance.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any other questions? One of the main things in terms of meditation is that this is a very important time where you actually, the connection with Baba happens at this particular time when I am in meditation, when I am in total connection with myself and all that I am. I then become a receiver, but also a frequency that I can connect, right? So I can connect, I receive the message, and I also communicate outwards. So I send out a frequency. So it's a two-way communication. So the only way to utilize that two-way communication is for you to be absolutely conscious of the self. I, the soul, the pure being, am connecting. So that quality allows for that type, the attribute of the connection. So it's very important. And this is the time also when the waste thoughts come about. So the sanskars that are keeping me in a limited space of thinking, of feeling and doing can be cleansed away. So I allow that sanskar to appear in my mind, in the window of my mind. I look at it just for what it is. I don't worry about it. I don't try to change it. I don't try to reinterpret it. I just look at it for what it is. And from that point, I then create a new relationship with it. One that brings me benefit, one that empowers me. So you see, there's a specific process, a specific method in which you can operate in your meditation, where from that conscious state of you are using your will to choose what to create. So you're molding the experience. You're not just sitting there as a passive player, but you're actually molding the experience. It becomes very powerful that way. Any questions?
Yes, brother, this is Ranjit. So we just talked about waste thought. When we're in the meditations, trying to connect ourselves, waste thoughts comes as per the sanskar. So no need to interpret, no need to respond, just watch. Then you mentioned create relationship. So is that in meditations like to the waste thought to disappears, or what did you mean about saying that?
Yeah. So what happens is that the waste thoughts don't disappear. I transform them. So the waste thought comes up, I look at it, I understand it, and from that understanding, I use my understanding of my powers, my different virtues, and I then use one of those lenses to transform this into a beneficial situation, a beneficial understanding. So for example, that person did this to me. So it's coming from blame, right? So I'm going to transform that. I, the pure being, the honest being, I'm going to take responsibility for my part in this. So therefore the blame is gone. I am now responsible for my part in this action. Now, how am I going to create benefit from this? Okay, so what is it that I need to change in myself? What is it that I need to strengthen in myself in order to transform the situation? Then you bring it into that transformation, and then the sanskar is then that old memory begins to be transformed. It becomes transformed into a situation where you needed to build respect, right?
Mhm.
And responsibility. And then also you took power from it because you understood your role in it and you transformed it. So for next time when a situation like that happens, then you're going to gain the knowledge that all you need to do is you're going to be reminded, what's your responsibility here? What's your part in it? What virtue can you bring into this in order to harmonize it so that the situation between you and the other becomes peaceful without disturbance? You see, it's very methodical. One little step, little tiny steps help, because if you look at it from that distance, so that's why it's important to always in that meditation to be the witness. I am witnessing what's coming in front of me. I am distancing myself so I don't take it personally. So it's not a personal thing that's happening. It's just, I'm just observing the past. I'm just observing what happened. And I'm observing the story I created that I stored away. That's all that's happening. And now I'm taking the time to look at it and rewrite that so that it's actually stabilizing me, allowing me to remain in my peace of mind and in my balance and my stability. I hope that expanded a little bit.
Yes, brother.
Any other questions?
I believe there were one or two other participants who had a comment or question. So I want to give you all the
Yeah.
chance in case you're not able to click on mute fast.
Yeah, would you please? Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Any comments still at this time? Anyone? I'll let you know, Santi, if
Oh, okay.
someone tries to talk.
Okay. So again, the reason why what happens is Baba said is telling us, here's the knowledge, here's the method, right? Use meditation in this way, connect with me, but more importantly, also connect with yourself and your internal process. Create an internal environment. So we know this idea that I am creating a garden of flowers versus a field of thorns, right? So a garden of flowers versus a field of thorns. The field of thorns comes from us having an internal world that is completely influenced by the external world, which creates division, separation, creates confusion as to who's God, what's God, where's God, who am I, what am I not, right? How do I fit into this world? How do I not fit into this world? So all these external influences, is what they're doing is they're creating confusion and creating separation from myself even. And the confusion comes from you not feeling whole, like you belong, like it's the right time, or it's not the right time. You're in the wrong place. This is not happening in my favor, right? I'm not being supported. All these things come from external influences because the external world causes all this form of separation. So now, Shiv Baba is redirecting us. Don't look out. Leave that alone. Finish the effects of the external influences. With knowledge, keep yourself stable. Keep yourself clean. Keep yourself detached from the external spheres of influence. Why is it necessary? Because this is the only way we can become, into the sphere that he wants us to engage with. Right? Move away from God, us creating God in our image, right? Created man in his image. So God created man in his image. What does that mean really? And are you comfortable? Are you comfortable in this particular time to actually become equal to God?
So I don't know if this is related, but there is a question now, which is how do you make sure ego doesn't hijack the experience of meditation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because when I focus, so the mind cannot focus on 2 points, 2 different ideas at the same time. So the main thing that I need to focus is I, the pure soul, am sitting here, and keeping that consciousness of who's actually sitting there and the quality in which you are imbuing yourself. So I am a pure being sitting here. And when you hold that space, the ego cannot come in. So it's very important that when you enter the space, you prepare yourself to enter the space with the understanding of who you are and your quality. So I, the pure being, I, the loving being, I, the compassionate being, whenever you enter into meditation and you keep that single focus on that state, what happens is the ego cannot come in unless you give the space for the ego to come in by saying I, the ego, right? So you give voice to the ego. So in meditation, we must really pay attention to keeping a single-minded, single focus, that one focus of who am I? I am the spiritual being, the child of the One, the unlimited, the eternal One, the pure One, the pure conscious, the pure love, the pure compassion. And when you keep that in your single mind, nothing else can enter, because your mind can only hold one thought at a time. So that's why it's important for you to be awake and alert at all times. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I'm glad that question was asked because that was an insightful answer. The one who asked that question, you can let me know if there's any further clarification needed. Thank you.
So I'll pose the question once again, are you okay being an equal to God? And that's something that's very important for us to understand, because God is here in this particular time to actually make us his equal. But now we have to ask ourselves, am I comfortable? Am I ready to be his equal? And what does that mean? Right? What does that mean to be an equal to God? What does that mean? So God is the creator, and God is pure always. God is love always. Love is compassionate always. There is no blemish in God. He is whole and complete, stable and powerful. So now ask yourself, are you okay being equal to God? Are you ready to hold that space of I am equal to the Father as the child? Anyone? Because one of the things that Shiv Baba reminds us is that we don't have to work towards something. We can just decide to be something different. So I can choose in this moment to be an equal to God by from this point forward, just being stable in my choice to only live virtues, to only speak virtues, to only listen with virtue, to only see with virtue, to only act with virtue, right? So that's how God is, right? So can I be in that pure form that God holds, despite the fact that I am living in a physical body, despite the fact that I have a past history of mixed doings, mixed thinkings, right? So can I, even if I am in a physical body, come clean? Can I let go of my past and from this moment forward become an equal to God? That's the question. So in this practice, that's the goal, to become an equal to God so that you can become a full instrument of God.
I think it's one thing to be able to let go of the past, past happenings, but to be able to let go of I guess upbringing and how what you were told in the past makes it a little more difficult, because I'm just thinking, and I have a feeling many probably are still used to this mindset. We were kind of taught in so many words that to consider yourself, to even try to make yourself equal to God is almost, or to think that's possible is to be egoistic.
Yeah. So, it is. It's very interesting because now you have God saying, "You are my equal." So, again, are you going to be listening to external influences? Or are you going to listen to the one who created you in his image? And it's all about trust and faith. So it's very, it's like when you come into this spiritual realm, you're being asked to forget everything from the past and to just let go of it, to set yourself free from it. And from this point on, just create a choice to move forward, walking in the same steps that Shiv Baba or Baba, the Father, would make, right? So we are the ones who will make the choice to either sit in the past or move forward into a new experience. And through the meditation, we can work these limitations that we're imposing upon ourselves so that we become free from it. And through the combination of the meditation, internal churning using the knowledge, and the power that comes from the connection that we enter when we are in meditation, right? The power that comes through from Shiv Baba in order to empower us to strengthen the will to be able to take that step and say, from here forward, I have died alive. I have died to the old self, and I am reborn as a spiritual being. And that's a form of self-realization. I self-realize as a spiritual being and allow everything else to fall to the side.
Yeah, I suppose that it's in a way still being in fear. Otherwise, if we are not ready to let go of that hesitancy to, have that aim and to become equal to God, there's almost this, it's maybe on some level still a fear of, oh, he's supposed to be, it's more about fearing God as opposed to being equal to him and having a relationship with him.
And it also connects to the point that we made before. Without self-love, without self-respect, we can't get to that point. So it becomes very important for us to work on developing the power of self-love and self-respect during meditation. So churning I, the powerful being, the child of the one Father, am full of love for the self.
I have a difficulty with this statement, being equal to God. I just can't imagine that, because if you feel that way, then it brings in false egoistic thinking. And so, what I would call false pride type thing, which can develop. So I am more in par with basically treating God like a father, mother, friend, like it is basically somewhat made in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjun, while talking to Lord Krishna, mentions him as a friend, and then you can joke around with God, but you can joke around, but equal to God is just unthinkable in my mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, even I would like to add one more thing. If you could answer the questions together. Even I was thinking, if we say that we are equal to God, then what's the difference between God and a human being? It's okay to have the qualities or powers we take from God. That's a different thing. But then being equal to him, then the human being will say that, I'm equal to God, and why should I pray to him?
Yeah.
That ways.
One of the
would also become basically give you like Hitler basically thought about, okay, fine, I'm almighty, and that type of thinking basically create, I would call monsters like Ravana did start thinking in terms of I'm the God, okay, or some of the false spiritual leaders basically teach their disciples I am the God, which is very irresponsible in my opinion.
Yeah. So here's the difference and the way I'm using it. So when I say equal to God, it means that I am equal to God in my ability to be the embodiment of love, to be the embodiment of compassion, to be the embodiment of respect, to be the embodiment of tolerance,
Right.
to be the embodiment of divine power. And so when you think from that spiritual purity, that other stuff does not come, because all of the other stuff has come from a space of mixed or just not elevated thinking. So when I say equal to God, it means that I must be able to maintain an elevated divine intellect, and I must hold that pure sense of self as a child of the one Father. So, before in the earlier parts of the conversation, I showed that a soul is a soul, right? So equal as a spiritual being, a soul, who has been endowed with the same qualities of the God, the Father. So that there's a confusion also between being equal in terms of the qualities of God and the role of God. No soul can play the role that God plays in terms of the cycle of time, right? So he has a very specific role to play. No other soul can play that role. So I'm not speaking to the role of God, but I'm speaking to the qualities of God, which have been given to each one of us as part of our treasures, part of our inheritance from God. So there's two different things we're speaking of. One is the role of I, God. Yes, and that when you think that you can play the role of God as a soul, then that comes from ego. You're right. And that can also be influenced by a lot of negative other influences. But when you think in terms of the qualities, right, that's a completely different capacity, different state.
I would rephrase it, personally speaking. I would say I have an element of God in me. Okay, I am a divine soul, and I myself have divine quality which can be developed, but I would not even dare to even think in any manner or that equal to God, I think that's a very, very, very dangerous thinking, in my opinion. Yes, I agree that we have a element of divinity which we can develop it, but
Okay.
that is just like basically taking a few drops from the ocean and drink to it rather than let it flow outside.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I totally agree. I totally understand where you're coming from. And one of the things that God is trying to expand our understanding of ourselves is that we can too be oceans of knowledge. We can too be oceans of love. We can too be oceans of peace. So it's also very important for us to expand our capacity to see ourselves as God sees us. So there's an aspect of that where we also need to expand and perceiving ourselves. But one of the things that I would encourage is that whatever I say is not important. The only thing that is important is how you create your own experience through practicing and experimenting with some of the techniques and methods that I have shared with you. And from that experimentation, you will find your place within how it is right for you to relate to these ideas.
Yeah, brother.
Copy.
This is Ranjit. Okay.
Thank you.
I hope that makes
So-
sense.
Yes, copy. I agree with you and I appreciate your guidance again.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
yeah, brother. So the way I perceived these questions was, and listening. So when it is saying, "Are you okay being an equal to God?" So going through the Murli every day, Baba mentions many times that once we receive the virtues and powers, Baba always says that once you become the embodiment of that, you release that to the universe or to the surroundings. And once you do that, love, happiness, compassion, you are the creator of love, because you are sending that. So the way I perceived question this was before was the same thing, that are you able to being equal to God? Equal does not mean I am the God, but I am being a embodiment of those quality. That's when I appear to somebody, they feel different.
Yeah.
That something is different, like our dadis or some sisters, when talk to them, even you see on the screen, you feel different. The energy that transmits is different. So this is what my perception of this questions was: are you okay to being an equal to God? So not the God, but to be embodiment of those qualities that at this confluence is, when people see you, they see God in you. That does not mean you are the God, but you change yourself, you transform yourself to the levels that when you stand, you speak, the energy that you transmit, it's not like sending, it's automatic. That people feels that, oh, like you forget about yourself, and when you come out from that, where I was here, I was like in trance or something. So if you feel that feelings to others, you are also a creator. That's how Baba mentions in the Morley. So that's how I understood this question. So are you okay being an equal to God? So I'm okay to become that, so that when I meet people, people see me, people can feel the energy around me. A lot of people say that when I listen, the Shivani looks like she's talking about me, and I just forget what she's saying. So or Dadi Janki or Dadi Prakashmani. So those, they have like achieved that level. So this is what I understood, like being equal to God, not that God, but become embodiment of those pure and powerful qualities, virtues, and powers that people feel from me.
Yeah. Another way of seeing that is, am I able to see myself as an example of divine qualities, right? So
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so can I see myself becoming an example of these divine way of being, divine way of thinking, divine way of feeling, divine way of literally using this physical body, so I become an example of divine consciousness. And that's what we are referring to, becoming an example of divine experience.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the way someone shared in the chat box beautifully summarized it. It was said, in my true essence, I am equal to the Father. So
That's
maybe
right.
looking at this more in terms of our essence as opposed to our form.
Yeah. But in terms of our form, we are souls. So Baba is very clear about that as well, that I am a soul and you are a soul, right? And so that's the first thing. So in form, in the form that we are, from a spiritual form, we are the same as he is. In terms of the qualities, we are the same as he is. In terms of the role we are playing, that's where the difference becomes, right?
Funny, I was thinking that right after I said it. I'm like, well, we're both souls, but yes, in terms of what role we play. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's why it's very important for us to go deep into the knowledge, deep into the knowledge, and using the meditation to go deep, so that we can dissect all the little tiny subtle meanings and states of experiencing the different ideas, and most importantly, how we experience ourselves, because there's a lot of stuff that we have to break away from, because we have been taught to be limited, to limit our thinking, to limit our feeling, to limit our doing. And so we have to break away from this idea that we're limited beings into an idea that we are unlimited beings. And that's part of the journey as well. I am an unlimited spiritual being.
I think very well put together. I like that statement. That basically makes us strive for improvement every day and increase our awareness towards the divinity. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? And it's also important for us to understand that there's no one else in this universe who's going to do the work for me. There's no magic, there's no special mantra, there's nothing that's going to do the work for me, except I must do the work and put the effort necessary in order for me to create my own transformation, my own remembering to the full understanding of who and what I am, and my relationship with myself, all other souls, nature, and the Divine One. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I wanted to say something about this. I was thinking about when you said limited, I realized what I wanted to tell you about that. We can be like equal to God. I will be happy to be equal to God because we have that same energy that God has, means all virtues and all that. But because of the body, we forget about him and we forget about our virtues. So that's where the limit comes. So unless you become totally soul conscious, then only you can be equal to God. That's right? Yeah. So you can't be completely, he is complete. We can't be complete because of the body consciousness because we have the body, we are bound to be body conscious somewhere, somehow.
Well, one of the things that Baba reminds us is that it is possible for us to be completely so conscious and exist in that pure so conscious states while still being in the body. So just also expanding our capacity, again, our capacity to see ourselves in this unlimited form becomes very important in how much we can achieve through effort. So we first have to give permission ourselves to arrive to our certain goal, to a certain destination. So if you want to be completely pure, so conscious, in this state of being, living in a physical body, then you must be able to see yourself in that state first so that you can then achieve it. So one, we must open our minds to be able to see that possibility so that we can then put effort towards it and fulfill it. But it is possible. And the only reason why I say it is possible is because Shiv Baba has said it's possible.
That's very good. Yeah, I mean, it convinces, right? You can be if you want to be. It's up to you. Right.
Yeah. So
That's beautiful.
we
Yeah,
need to
you have to
expand
be.
our imagination to include what we felt before was limited and impossible. So we have to expand our imagination of ourselves. We have to expand our imagination in terms of how capable we are and how far we will be able to reach, and how, so all of these things are important because that's what actually will keep us in a limited form. If we cannot open our minds to become and allow ourselves the space to be powerful, divine beings. Is there any other questions? So the reason, so here again, so, one of the reasons why he keeps asking this is because he knows we can, because it's part of our nature. And the part of forgetfulness that we went through is forgetting that our nature is to be pure, is to be in pure love, peace, bliss, just like him. And so that's part of the remembering that is happening. He is reminding us of our inner treasures, of our natural state. So as souls, we have a natural state. And that natural state is that state of pure virtue. And so he's just asking us, are you ready to return to who you are? And the stuff that we're looking for on the external world, love and all this other stuff to fulfill or to feel whole, is already there. That's part of the message that Shiv Baba is telling, that everything that you are searching for is already there. All you have to do is open your mind, open your heart, and become it once again. Embrace it. Use it. So this whole journey is to move away from forgetfulness and move into the remembering of who and what I am naturally. What is the natural state of a spiritual being. And that's what we are moving towards. So the question that I want to leave you with is, as we pose the question, are you able to become an example of these divine qualities? So now the question is, can you commit to embodying virtues without exception? That means that in no situation, whether towards yourself, towards others, or to anywhere in the world, can you commit to just being love in this world? Pure love. Can you commit to be the embodiment of peace? Can you commit to being the embodiment of compassion? Can you commit to being the embodiment of purity? And that's really where we, that's what Shiv Baba is calling us to ask and to be able to answer these questions. Am I ready to commit to being that divine being? And that's a very personal question. And I think that in meditations, we need to really focus on doing the work to clean away all the limited ways of thinking and processing, so that we can then really have the power to commit to this virtues without exception, to just living out virtues in our thinking, our feelings, and our doings. Any questions or comments? So if there's no more questions and comments, why don't we just take let's take 2 minutes of silence and let's go inward. And I want you to just imagine yourself, that pure point of energy, that point of life-giving energy, the one who gives life to this physical body of yours, this instrument. I want you to see yourself as this pure, divine being, unlimited, eternal. Feel yourself as pure energy, purity, sitting in this physical body, purity going beyond the body, vibrating, expanding. See yourself as the pure being, the child of the Divine Father, the pure one. See yourself as His example. I am pure. I am pure. I am pure and have unlimited power. I am the Father's divine child. Om Shanti, everyone. Thank you for participating.
Thank
Om
you, brother.
Shanti.
That was
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes, thank you very much. We definitely all got some insights from that. And so we'll all be going into our daily evening meditation now. So you are welcome to stay to further contemplate, your true self and your connection with God. Also, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. That link has been put in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you, Brother Santi, and Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Om Shanti.